Hello there, everybody. It's me, Garrett Kidney, the co-host of You've Got to Be Kidding Me on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
And I am Liam Jones, my full name, and I'm also a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network as a co-host for You've Got to Be Kidding Me.
We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. We cover all the drama, all the matches, all the Vince Russo nonsense you could ever want in your life.
Have you heard of TNA? I bet you have, but would it be funnier if two people made jokes over it the whole time? Probably.
So if that sounds like fun to you, check it out on this very Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, and Liam will do bits and whatnot.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I am your host, Andrew Rich, joined today by a returning guest. He is the host of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. It's Mr. Warren Hayes. Hello again, Warren.
Hey Andrew, how are you? I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. And I was on the original version, like on the OG version, and now on the remix. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm the king of multi-disciplines at this point when it comes to Music of the Mat.
Well, I'm glad to have you back, and I'm glad you're just here in general, because I know since the last time you were on, you had a pretty major health scare with your heart. Do you want to tell people what that was about who may not know?
Yeah, no, thank you, man. It's very nice of you to say. Yeah, I had in early January this year, I had an aortic dissection, is what they call it. So that's when your aorta decides to create an extra little canal within it. So it basically tears up from the inside. And it's not a good thing, Andrew. It's not something your aorta is supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure the heart is important. I think you need that one to be okay. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, you need. It's pretty significant. That's what this whole ordeal taught me. Yeah, it was pretty scary. It was really funny because it's one of those things where, when it happened, right? I think I'm sitting there and it hurts. But it's not like this outlandish hurt. And the first thing that comes to your mind is like, oh, this is a heart attack. I'm having a heart attack. And you're thinking heart attacks on TV, right? That's in movies where, they clutch their chest, and they dig the...
I'm coming, Elizabeth. Fingers. I'm coming. It's the big one.
There you go. And they're collapsing on the floor. And you're like, well, okay, so this, I guess, what I'm having right now, when you're trying to rationalize this, I'm having a mild heart attack. That's what I'm... But, call the ambulance. Ambulance comes. They drive me in. They put me immediately under the knife. And I wake up and I'm like, there you go. Because I was like thinking as I'm passing out, I'm like, they're going to fix me up. And then I meet the cardiologist and he says, sir, you almost died. You had this aortic dissection. And it is very serious. And it doesn't have and the fact that you were young and already healthy helped you survive this because it's a very low survival rate. And I'm like, oh boy, not as jovial as I thought. It's not just like quick patch me up, rinse out the tubes and put them back in kind of thing. No, it's it was something. And but since then I've been doing really good, and I'm I've got all I everyone knows me like at the hospital at this point because I go really often. So there's sometimes I'm like, it's fun because everyone knows you, but at the same time, everyone knows you at the hospital. So, there's something also very depressing about that, but they've been taking great care of me, and I feel good, and I'm able to spend some time with you and talk about music. So that's tremendous.
Yeah, I remember when we got the news that you were in bad shape, and it was tough to hear, but you're still with us, thankfully. And I know being a wrestling fan, it can be a real strain on the ticker at times, but I think if you can make it through a lifetime of dumb wrestling angles and booking, you can make it through anything, Warren. I'm sure of it.
That's exactly what the doctor said. He said, "Oh, you've sat through 2 decades of WWE booking. That's why you made it, sir."
Exactly. Doctor's advice is second to none, I'm sure. Yes.
Absolutely. That's how I made it.
Exactly.
So, hang in there, folks. That's the message here. It's an inspirational message. Just hang in there. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, today, Warren, I am very excited for this episode here. It's an episode I'm calling Canadian Destroyers. Now, for the record, there is a Canadian band called Destroyer. We're not doing an episode about them, but we are doing an episode about Canadian musicians, Canadian bands, Canadian artists, just in general. All things musically Canuck. And it's very appropriate. I've got a Canadian guest like yourself here with me, you being from Quebec, of course, there, Warren. And it's a big episode for sure, because some of the biggest and best music names of all time are Canadian, as we'll get to here, I'm sure. And the same is true with wrestling. There's a deep history of wrestling in Canada throughout the years, all the different territories with Stu Hart and Stampede, and the Tunnies, and the Rougeaus. And we can go down the list of very prominent Canadian wrestlers from Gene Kiniski and Leo Burke and the Vachons, and to, Bret and Owen Hart, Roddy Piper, Chris Jericho, Edge and Christian, Trish Stratus, Gail Kim, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Kenny Omega, and so on and so forth. And it may not have the glitz and glamour of the good old US of A there, Warren, but I have an appreciation for what the Great White North has given us over the years there. So I think it's a good way to pay tribute to your fine homeland there, my good friend.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think so. Like the the tradition of wrestling, of pro wrestling in Canada is still very seeped. You mentioned some of its greatest luminaries, but they're some of the most successful territories back in the days, right? Were like right here, the Montreal territory, the Toronto territory. Like you mentioned, you talked about the Tunnies and the Rougeaus, and then after that, you had Gino Brito and Dino Bravo and Andre the Giant with Lutte Internationale and so on and so forth. So like it's just seeped in tradition, and it's always great to see your Canadian stalwarts make it in pro wrestling, just like it's great to see the same thing in music when you have these great artists that are able to break into the scene across North America, so in the US as well. That's tremendous. I feel like comedians in Canada have an easier time of breaking into the US, like because there's a lot of funny people from Canada who've had tremendous careers in the US, and I always find that those Canadians who make it in music in the U.S., I feel like they're a rarer breed, and it's rather significant.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's plenty of actors too from Canada who have made it big. Of course, it does help that so many movies and TV shows are actually filmed in Canada. Every time you see something that says, "Oh, we're in New York City," it's Toronto. "Oh, we're in the forests of Colorado," it's Vancouver. It's amazing just how many great movies and TV shows have been filmed up your way there, Warren.
Yeah, no, that does indeed help. Yeah, I mean, and to be quite frank, there are a lot more opportunities for actors there's a lot more opportunities for actors in U.S. productions than there are in Canadian productions. Mm-hmm. It's really not the same thing. I don't know how much of a true successful career you can have just by working in Canada. I think you do have to stretch out and head on south if you really do want to make it, which is why I think the music scene here is healthy and produces its own stars without necessarily having crossover into the U.S. I think it's a lot more plausible for Canadian artists to have great careers performing only in Canada while being completely anonymous in the U.S. or close to, which makes it even more special, I think, when, like I mentioned, when the event in the circumstances that they do break through and make it to to more generalized success across North America. I think it makes it more special.
Mm-hmm. And I took the name of the episode Canadian Destroyers from The Move, obviously, and I picked it because, look, the way I see it in this day and age, that move is like the most prevalent Canadian thing in wrestling right now. Like, you cannot watch any show anywhere and not see someone hit a Canadian Destroyer in a match. Like, I'm not complaining either. I'm not doing an old man, oh, back in my day, that move meant something, damn it. No, like, back in my day, 2004, when I saw P.D. Williams hit that move in TNA, I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. A flip pile driver? Are you kidding me? What? And, has it lost some of that cool factor because you see it so often nowadays? Sure, of course. But I can't deny that a good-looking Canadian Destroyer can still pop me, Warren. Big time.
And let me tell you, it's to all of you up-and-coming wrestling commentators out there, never forget to use the Canadian in front of the Destroyer. Okay? I get a little peeved sometimes when there's a Destroyer. No. It is a Canadian Destroyer. I actually get excited when we see Canadian backbreakers, right? Because we don't see those much. So I'm like, oh, sweet. Like, there we go, right? Because, yeah, they're the it factor to the Canadian Destroyer isn't there as much, but I don't know. I just like hearing the name. I just like hearing my country being referenced.
Look, if Germany can have a suplex, Canada can have a destroyer.
All right,
come on. It's only fair. It's only fair. All right, it's only right. But,
I agree.
But let's get to our songs here. We have 10 each, which really is, a drop in the bucket of just how many Canadian musicians there are to choose from. It's a pretty large country there, Warren. A lot of territory up there. And what's cool is, looking at my list, it's mostly artists who have made it elsewhere, who are very well known outside of Canada, whereas your list, Warren, is more, I guess, obscure on a more global level.
Yeah, when I saw your list, I was like, okay. Like, I had started putting mine together very, very slowly, but you shared mine. I was like, oh, okay. I see where he's going. Let's dig a little deeper on my end, and quite frankly, maybe out for maybe one song where I was like, damn, or one artist. I was like, oh, why did he pick this person? Shoot. Outside of that, I was like, very good choices. I'll be able to wrap this up nice and have a nice list of 20 artists to go over.
Absolutely, yes. And there's a play out song at the end. We'll get to that much, much later. But Warren, you are the guest du jour. So start us off here. What is your first pick?
All right. Well, we're going to go with a classic, one that is obvious, one of the great Canadian bands. I think you can't necessarily start any discussion about Canadian music without starting with Ahead by a Century by the Tragically Hip.
Silently and listen to our thoughts with illusions of someday cast in a golden light. No dress rehearsal. This is our life. And that's where the hornet stung me. And I had a feverish dream with revenge and doubt. Tonight we smoke them out. You are ahead by a century. You are ahead by a century. You are ahead by a century.
Yeah, so if you talk to most Canadians, most of them will tell you that there's two official. There's two national anthems. There's the official one, True North, Strong and Free, and all that stuff. And then depending who you talk to, the second one will either be Tom Sawyer from Rush, or this song here, and then it becomes a question of taste. But it's always these same two songs that pop up. Ahead by a Century, of course, came from the album Trouble at the Hen House, which is the quintessential hip album from I don't have the note. 1996.
96. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like an absolutely tremendous album. It's one of their best known, and a seminal band across the country that has just like was able to touch people everywhere by the quality of the music, its authenticity. Of course, transmitted mostly through Gord Downie, the lead singer, when he passed away from cancer in 2017. And I cannot believe that it's almost 10 years since he's passed away. It was practically a national day of mourning because everyone in Canada, my age and maybe a little younger, we're not talking about kids today, but everyone somewhere was touched by the music of the hip. And we're talking about by a century, but it could be Wheat Kings, it could be New Orleans is Sinking, it could be Grace 2. Like there are so many songs that just hit you right in the spot, exactly what you need. This combination of rock and folk that was just that's a kind of a trademark also in Canadian rock bands, but they were just able to hit it home, principally thanks to I think the sincerity and the performances of Gord Downie. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, we couldn't start off. The only other band we could start off with was Rush. Like that's how it goes. But we're going with the hip on this one.
Yeah, there'd be some very upset Canadians if we did not play this band.
I agree.
They're considered to be like the most beloved Canadian band ever by a lot of people, and one of the best-selling Canadian bands in Canada ever of all time. And yeah, it's interesting how they were never able to get that same success and that same name recognition in the States, unlike Rush. They have a U.S. fan base, but not like Canada. I know, speaking for myself, I didn't even know who they were until, some years ago when Chris Jericho played a song of theirs on his radio show on satellite radio. It was Fully Completely. So
sure, there you go.
Yeah, I'd never heard of them until a couple of years ago or whatever. But yeah, they're pretty big in Canada. And this song was the last one they ever played live. It was at their farewell concert after Gord got sick. And that last show, to let people know how big this band was, that last show was broadcasted on multiple CBC TV radio channels, online, no commercials. And I think something like a third of the country tuned in. So, yeah, these guys are beloved, to say the least, up in Canada for sure, Warren.
Yeah, it like I said, like when he passed, it really did feel like a day of mourning. Like there's politicians who were probably very jealous. Like, I will never get that kind of response when I pass on. About them not hitting not getting any recognition in the US. And I don't know how to say it. And we're going to probably bring this up on a couple of other occasions going down our lists, but this is a quintessential Canadian vibe band. Like this is the Canadian vibe. I don't know how else to put it. It doesn't surprise me that they didn't connect everywhere else. Look, I would even argue that there's spots in Quebec, because Quebec is, it does its own thing within Canada sometimes. There's spots in Quebec that the hip weren't as popular as they were everywhere else. It's truly like it's a vibe thing, and I don't know how else to put it. And I'm not like it, to me. It never. I understood to a degree, like just as a gut feeling, I understood why they weren't able to translate in the same way to the US.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, my first pick is a lady from Ottawa, and I always misspell her name. It's Alanis Morissette, 1 R, 2 S's, 2 T's. 122, folks. There you go. And this is a song from her 2004 album called So-Called Chaos, and this song is called 8 Easy Steps.
How to stay paralyzed by fear of abandonment. How to defer to men insolvable predicaments. How to control someone to be a carbon copy of you. How to have that not work and have them run away from you. How to keep
that's very You Oughta Know-esque, I think, with the sardonic, cynical lyrics, except in this case, the target is not Dave Coulier, not Uncle Joey, it's herself. You know, she's maybe this big icon and all that, but she's not perfect. She has all these faults. So yeah, it's a very energetic song, but not a very positive one, which I think Alanis is very good at. She's very good at the angry pop songs there, Warren. Poppy Rage, I guess, is a good way to describe it there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. She, I mean, it's really her trademark. Funny thing, right? She, she had a documentary made about her not that long ago, a couple of years ago, and she straight up in the documentary said, "This song's not about you, Dave Coulier. It's not about you." Like she flat out said it because he took credit for it. If I remember correctly, that's how the story goes. He said he's the guy who said, "Oh, this song is about me," and then like 20 years later or whatever, she's like, "No, it's not about you." And she was even like, "Isn't it kind of weird that he'd take credit for a song that makes you come across as a douchebag?" So it turns out it wasn't really him. Did you know she started off as a true to form pop artist?
Yeah, that's the thing in my notes here. She's always had that kind of complex way about her. She started out as a dance pop artist, and then her third album is Jagged Little Pill, and all of a sudden she is this, alt rock juggernaut and this massive star. And ever since then, she's been kind of mostly pop and rock and folk, but her most recent album is like this ambient meditation album. Mm-hmm. So you can't really put her in, just one box. That is for sure, Warren, yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I remember when Jagged Little Pill came out, because the album her first album, which was a pop album, had a song on, I don't remember the name. I think it was just called Alanis. I think that, anyway, but it had a single on it called Too Hot. Okay. And it was playing everywhere. Like just one of these insufferable, early 90s pop tunes, that just followed the pattern, right? And you just, never too hot, never too cold. You take your best shot, too hot to hold, kind of thing. And so when she released Jagged Little Pill, like music snobs like myself were sort of, doing the pointing at her and going, ha ha, kind of thing. But it just exploded. And there was a realization that's like, oh, she's just shedding whatever she needed to do to get into the business kind of thing and decided to do something more personal. Kind of like what Rick Astley tried to do back in the day, but very unsuccessfully. People just wanted him to do his little pop tunes as opposed to this brooding artist that he wanted to be. It was tremendous. Like it was a complete flip. She went from someone who was just like on Much Music was our MTV up here in Canada, by the way. So like she was on Much Music on rotation all the time, and people just wanted to shoot each other, and it's just like this is terrible. And she just completely 180'd into this, and did she have like Dave Navarro in Flea like play on Jagged Little Pill too? Like she decided to just like get some cred going on it. Like it was just a perfect thing that just a perfect storm just came together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we also saw in the movie Dogma, she's God too. So hey, look, she's got a lot of things going on there.
That's
good old
true.
Alanis, so
that's true. She's also God in oh, this is dumb. What's it? The people who do Bob's Burgers, they have a spin-off about people living in the north.
Oh, was it the Great North? I think
something like that. She's God in that too.
Oh, well. She is everywhere, after all. She is the Alpha and the Omega, so,
there you go.
it's kind of her thing, I suppose, yes. But
pretty much.
Yeah, but all right, what's your next pick there, Warren?
We're going to live into one of the two solitudes of Canada and hit up one of Quebec's most important, significant rock and roll artists from 1976. We are going to listen to Robert Charlebois, his song called The Frog Song.
Tomberai du Suddenly, donne-moi des peanuts, je m'en vais te chanter Alouette sans fausse note. 7h15, t'embarques dans l'autobus, ton seul signe court pour aller travailler. Un beau voyage en groupe organisé, comme tous les matins. You're a frog, I'm a frog, kiss me, and I'll turn into a prince suddenly.
So Charlebois is one of, like I mentioned, one of the most important music artists of the past 50 years or so in Quebec. Here's the situation when it came to music, like in the 60s in the province, was kind of dire because there were really no songwriters. There were no singer-songwriters. Instead, what record labels would do, they would buy the rights to American songs. Well, you know, they'd buy the rights to songs produced in the U.S., rather famous songs, and translate them into French, and then have a local artist perform them in French. So you'd have stuff like Splish Splash, I Was Taking a Bath, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You'd have that en français, Splish Splash tout en prenant mon bain, kind of thing. And this created an entire generation of very successful yet very vapid music artists, right? Who were part of a machine. And towards the turn of the decade of the 60s into the 70s, there was a lot of people wanting to reclaim French Canadian culture, Quebecois culture specifically, and of course, music is a great way to get that through. And Robert Charlebois, what he did is he took influences that from current rock that was going on. I mean, you can absolutely hear the influences in the riffs and the bluesy tones, but decided to write songs that spoke to French Canadians, and Quebecois specifically, and he sang them in a very Quebec style patois, you know, where not in a very international French style. No, like really blue collar stuff. And the stuff that he sings about, like in the Frog song, are things where talking about the condition of the Quebecois blue collar worker. You know, wake up in the morning, your toasts are burnt, you're out of hot water because your landlord's a jerk, you know, and you line up on the bus every morning to go to work. But you know, then he does the English part. You're a frog, I'm a frog, kiss me, smooch, smooch. Basically just to say, oh, well, you know, we're all supposed to make this happen. Also, you know, we're all supposed to love each other because that's what the federal government wants us to do, right? So it's a bit of a resistance song at the same time, ties into the separatist movement of Quebec, which, you know, I don't think we have time to break that down here today. But, you know, it all ties into these very tumultuous times in the province, and a lot of great artists came out of that period as well. But it'd be hard to argue, at least on the rock scene, to argue against Charlebois being one of the greats, if not the greatest.
Yeah, this is one of the people on your list where I saw it and I was like, I have no idea who this person is.
Right.
You know, I just thought, oh, this is just a novelty song or whatever. It turns out, no, he is actually a very important figure in Quebec music history. He's,
yes.
What is it called? A chansonnier, a poet singer who helped. Is that how it's pronounced by any chance?
No, you pronounced it well. I'm just doubting if I would call Charlebois a chansonnier, because I know exactly. I would say guys like Gilles Vigneault, Paul Pichet. Shout out to all my French Canadians listening right now. There would be more clearer representatives of that. I think Charlebois was a rock and roll artist. I think that's what he was.
Well, regardless of all that, you know, he helped take Quebec's music culture from traditional pop music to rock, right, in a big way. And yeah, he's singing about Quebec culture and issues, and in this dialect called Joual, which is a working class dialect. So yeah, he's a big deal. Yes, it is very silly to have I'm a frog, you're a frog, kiss me. It's very all silly. But if you know your French and you actually know what the lyrics are about, it is, a pretty, a pretty important message, I suppose, for the Quebec people there.
I should have mentioned this from the start. The idea, why are we talking about frogs here? Frog was a derogatory term used by English Canadians about Quebecois, French Canadians,
and the French in general, really. So yeah.
But exactly, that's right. You are right. Which is weird because I've been called frog a couple of times, and then I turn around and I speak in English, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, oops."
You're a prince. You're not a frog. You're
I'm already the prince. Exactly.
All right. Well, my next pick here, they are from Scarborough, Ontario, and they're not naked women, but they are Barenaked Ladies. This is from their album Grinning Streak from 2012, and this song is called Odds Are.
Struck by lightning sounds pretty frightening, but you know the chances are so small. Stuck by beast ain't nothing but a beat thing. Better chance you're gonna buy it at the mall. But it's a 23 or 4 to 1 that you can fall in love by the end of this song. So get up, tell the bookkeeper to bet on not a damn thing will go wrong. The odds are that we will probably be alright. Odds are we gonna be alright. Odds are we gonna be alright tonight. The odds are that we will probably be alright. Odds are we gonna be alright. Odds are we gonna be alright for another night. Hit by the A-train, crashed in an airplane. I wouldn't recommend either one. Killed by a great white or a meteorite. I guess there ain't a way to go that's fun. But somewhere in the world someone is gonna fall in love.
So that is a song from the post-Stephen Page era of the band, after he left those guys. And I think it exemplifies what the Barenaked Ladies do best, which is just create these wonderful little rock songs with lovely melodies and harmonies and clever lyrics. People tend to think of them as the band that goes, "It's been," and fair enough, because it's a lot of fun to say, "It's been," but there's a lot more to them than that, for sure. They have a lot of great songs, so I am very much a Barenaked Ladies respecter all the way, Warren.
Props to you for bringing up one of their more recent releases. I think that for a lot of, people my age who were around when they were really coming into prominence, we're not as attached to the new stuff. So, I was like, you pulled it up and I was like, odds are, what album is that on? And then, I'm thinking back and I'm like, what is odds are on? And then I pull it up on Spotify and I'm like, oh, it's one of their new things. And, I like it because it still has that very fun vibe that the BNL have always had, but yeah, I got to tell you, I'm a Gordon guy, their second album or something like that. Now, I'm a Gordon guy,
I think it was their first, actually.
Was it their first?
I think so.
I always get confused, either Stung or Gordon. I can never remember, but that's the album that, if I had $1 million, Brian Wilson, those are my Barenaked Lady jams, right?
The Old Apartment, all the old favorites.
Exactly. And 1 week from Stung,
Stunt. You keep saying Stung. It's
Stunt. Yes.
What kind of Canadian are you, my friend? Come on.
I know. Look, it's been a day. But yeah, they got. Look, they're a tremendous band. They've always stood apart from their whimsical lyrics and their great tuned composition. Like, these guys could put a pop song together like no one else. And they were so seminal in the 90s, a tremendous band. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a big Barenaked Lady respecter as well.
Yeah, I kind of knew who they were before I even knew who they were, because when I was in kindergarten, my best friend, Max Greb, and I would make each other laugh, but just by saying "chicken to China, to Chinese chicken," because it's a funny thing to say when you're 5 years old or whatever. And then you get older, and then you realize, wait a minute, Ed Robertson is rapping faster than the speed of light in that song. It's so impressive. So yeah, I've grown to really enjoy their work. They're a fun band, sometimes serious, but they're always just so damn pleasant there, Warren.
Absolutely. I think that's the word. I think that's the exact word to really sum them up. It's pleasant. A pleasant band. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, what do you got next for us there, Warren?
What are we doing next on my side? Yes. A bit of a deep cut here from 2004. We're going all the way back. Is that right? Hang on. Why am I
2003?
2003. That is correct. Thank you for correcting me in my notes. I should have taken better notes. But 2003, we're going to listen to Montreal band The Unicorns and their song Tough Ghost.
Tough ghost, tough crowd, tough love. Sit down, sit down, sit down. Tough ghost, tough crowd, tough love. Sit down, sit down, sit down. Say something now. Say something now. Tough ghost disappears for 3 days. Tough ghost is set in his ways. I don't want to hurt you. You can't 'cause I'm already dead. Tough ghost invincible. The guts came out when he bled. I lift weights, but I don't sweat. I go for a swim, but I don't get wet. I don't care about it.
So the mid 2000s in Montreal were an incredible music scene, like an absolutely fantastic music scene. So many bands coming up. This is the era that produced the Arcade Fire, for instance. Mm-hmm. And bubbling underneath all of that success were just dozens and dozens upon dozens of great bands, great indie bands. And out of that rose the Unicorns, who were in the minds of everyone were poised for greatness with this eclectic, weird, very cleverly written music. This is from their album "Who Will Cut Our Hair When We're Gone," a seminal album that turned out to be their only album, because the success that they had, they were starting to break through. They were playing. They started playing festivals in the U.S. They were really starting to break out, and the band just started to hate each other on tour, like just outright hating each other, to the point that they could not work with each other. They couldn't record anymore, and that was their last album, and it came much to the chagrin of their fans, who were just frothing at the mouth for more. They reunited in 2014 for a little stint. They recorded just a couple of songs. I think they did a little EP, just a couple of songs, and that would be like their final recording ever. They did the thing. They tried it again, and they were like, nah, you know what? We still can't stand each other. So we moved on, which is a shame, because they truly were some of the most creative and wild bands that were finding their footing and success. They were in demand. They were getting, Pitchfork, right? The magazine. I think they almost gave their first album a 9 out of 10, which is I think it's an 8.9 or something to that effect. They were on the rise. They were absolutely on the rise. We'll never know how far they would have gotten, but it's still a band that people regret. It's still an album. Their album. It's still one that people pull out and listen to and vibe out to. It's a tremendous record.
Yeah, I like what I heard. It has that very 2000s indie rock, garage rock vibe with the distorted voice, that classic staple of the era. And yeah, I was wondering why I'd never heard of them before. It turns out they only lasted 4 years.
Yeah.
With 2 albums, one of them self-released, and then they split up. So yeah, this was 2000 to 04, same time as Arcade Fire is starting out. Hot Hot Heat is on the come up. And they could have had that slice of the Canadian indie rock pie, but it just wasn't to be there, Warren. Yeah.
And I think I honestly think they were ready to cross over. I think they would have made it in the States, if only, even if it was only like in the Northwest. Like, I think they had something. They had something special, and they were good looking guys too. On top of that, like they had all the pieces to be a really, really solid indie rock band that just could have toured anywhere.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my next pick did make it. She's a rather notable lady from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And her birth name is Roberta Joan, but everybody calls her Joni Mitchell. And I went with a live version of one of her most famous songs. A few years ago, she did a comeback show at the Newport Folk Festival. So this is from that performance, that live album. So this is Joni Mitchell with Both Sides Now.
The dizzy dancing way you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave 'em laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. No, don't give yourself away. Oh, I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take. Still somehow it's love's illusions that I recall. I really don't know love. I really don't know love at all.
So I am a tough man with a hard outer shell, but this song, it pierces that shell and hits my creamy, gooey center. It makes me feel things, damn it. It makes me feel things. It's just so emotional. And in the video, she's on stage, surrounded by all these people. Brandi Carlile, you heard her there in the song. Winona Judd is there on stage, backup singers, musicians. And when she sings this, you can see people start to cry on stage. It's a very, very powerful performance. And yeah, this was her comeback concert. She hadn't performed in, I think, like 9 years. And she had suffered a pretty bad brain aneurysm in the meantime. So she had, came back from that too. So yeah, all in all, just a legendary performer, a legendary songwriter. And this just, it hits me deep there, Warren, for sure.
And it's a great song that you picked. It's, I think a lot of people are probably familiar with
the Judy Collins version,
which she originally wrote for, right?
Well, she wrote it before Judy Collins did, but Judy Collins' version came out first before her version.
Yes, and then she recorded it afterwards with just acoustic guitar, and that's what struck me with the choice you made here. It's like, oh, piano, because the original version it's just an acoustic guitar. It's just like, and it's beautiful in its own right. And then she did another recording of it early 2000s, if my memory serves me right, where now it's much more orchestral. She has strings around her, and it feels much more like larger. And it's interesting because the first version is so intimate and it works. But even the one with all the instrumentation around her, it also works. It also hits on, and it hits on different levels and on that same type of emotion as well. And that's always been one of her absolute strengths, right? Is just to be a hard on sleeve, authentic performer, right? It's it's a great choice you had there.
Yeah, what makes it so powerful is she wrote this song in her early 20s from the perspective of an old person looking back on their life and comparing how they saw the world back then to now, the illusions and the dreams of youth versus the realities of experience in old age. And, she's seen things from both sides now. And now here she is actually singing it as an old woman. And I think it just gives it so much more emotional weight, at this stage of her life there, Warren, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a little bit of a full circle moment, but there's no denying that Joni Mitchell is like one of our country's greatest exports. I think she's beloved everywhere. She's a legend in the truest sense of the word, and bit of a prideful guy right now. Talking about Joni Mitchell.
I'm glad I could help there, Warren. But what's next for you, man?
Let's take a look at a band here that I really enjoy. We're going to go over to 2023 from their album or The Rise and Fall. Let's listen to Plague Dogs by the Rural Alberta Advantage.
Try to save them from the flies and of course I can't run. Running out of time and the weight on my head and my heart, it's a human mind. Whenever it's alone, everybody's running on their own. Everybody's coming after you and I. Everybody's running out of time, even me and you. Everybody's coming after you and I.
Leave it to people from Toronto to talk about rural advantages of Alberta, right?
Exactly.
That's
Bunch of liars. Come on. What are you doing?
Bunch of phonies. What are you trying to get us in? What are you trying to sell us here? Originally from Toronto. I think this is one of these bands that when I was talking about the Canadian vibe, right? I think this is I think they encapsulate it well. I think this is a band that if you were to present this to someone in, the over in California, I don't think they'd get it, right? This is one that I think this is where they fall in. And it's strange because since Gord Downey passed away and the Hip have no longer been a thing, I think there has been a void in Canada for that great Canadian band. We've had, like, not even Rush is around anymore with Neil Peart passing on. So there is a void right now. Where is this great unifying band that all Canadians agree is like, this is the thing? I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty sure that the Advantage doesn't have the spread or the renown that the two other bands that I mentioned had or have, but they do. They are. I feel like they have all the elements to be able to fill that void, especially with their 2023 album, The Rise and Fall, which I feel is their most fleshed out album, where they're trying stuff out. They're staying. They're staying true to this, again, very folksy rock music that is very everyman, very blue collar. It's just tremendous stuff. Also, while being very poetic about it, and the album is fantastic. It's a great band that I hope continue to grow and get the opportunities to really spread really, really wide across the country, because they're one of my go-tos. I love them. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I dug this one a lot, for sure. It kind of reminded me of the Alanis song I picked, where it has a lot of energy, but the vibes are kind of negative too. And I looked it up. This song is named after a book called Play Dogs, about two dogs that escape from a research lab and they're on the run. And the guy who wrote the song wanted to convey that sense of dread and isolation.
Right.
So there's talk about running out of time and stabbing and the plague. So they do a good job there, at least in that sense there, Warren, for sure.
Well, I mean, on the same album, they have a song called Candu, Candu, which basically is a song about a town, like a mining town in Canada, falling apart because the company closed down the uranium mine that lived there. And it's a uranium mine on top of that. So, people leaving because they're sick, people be leaving because there's no economy, like they're, and it's a tremendous song. Like, it's great, but also has this very harsh, relatable undertone to it as well. Yeah, I mean, I think they're fantastic. Honestly, right now, on the Canadian scene, they're right up there. They're very, very hard to beat for me.
I'll check them out for sure after this. Definitely, yeah. So, okay, we've mentioned this band quite a bunch this episode so far. Let's play them. This is a trio that started out in the suburbs of Toronto, and they are really in my top 3 favorite bands ever. It's Mr. Geddy Lee, Mr. Alex Lifeson, and the late, great Mr. Neil Peart. It's Rush, and I went with a song from their album Signals from 1982. This is The Analog Kid.
All-night girl with sun-brown legs dances on the edge of his dream, and the whispers in his ears like the music of the spheres. The boy lies in the grass unmoving, staring at the sky. His mother starts to call him as a heart goes soaring by, and the boy pulls down his baseball cap and covers up his eyes. You move me with your buildings and your eyes, autumn woods and winter skies. You move me, open sea and city lights, busy streets and dizzy heights. Call me.
So there is this feeling, it's called anamoya, and it's having nostalgia for a time or place you never experienced. And this song, and 80s Rush in particular, gives me that feeling. Just the sound, the keyboards, the lyrics, Geddy's voice, it all just kind of creates this longing in me. And I love all eras of Rush, but this is one of my favorite songs of theirs by far. It hits me right in the soul there, Warren. I love it so much.
Listen, it's Rush. What do you want? Did you say you said this right? It's one of your top 3 favorite bands?
Absolutely.
Are you sure? Are you just a Canadian in disguise, Andrew?
Oh, let's not give the game away. Come on now.
All right. Sorry, kayfabe, brother, kayfabe.
Kayfabe, come on.
So, I mean, look, I was actually impressed, but now I understand, because I was actually impressed with your choice, right? The Analog Kid, which is not necessarily a go-to song. So I was like, oh, great album though. Singles is tremendous, right?
Oh yeah.
Did I say Signals? I have trouble pronouncing tonight. It has subdivisions on that album, which, Conform or Be Cast Out. And New World Man
is on there. Countdown, yeah.
Which are tremendous Rush standards, right? No, I'm impressed with it. Since we're talking as Rush fans here, I'm a Grace Under Pressure guy.
That's great too. Yeah.
I'm a Distant Early Warning kind of guy, a Red Sector A kind of guy. I'm a 2112 kind of guy. We Are the Priests of the Temples of Syrinx, brother. I mean, it's Rush, man. Like, I don't know what
can you say? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
well, listen, this era of the band, things are definitely changing. Musically, they are less 70s prog rock, got shorter songs, more synths. Vocally, Geddy's voice is much, much more melodic and not as shrieking, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
And lyrically, Neil is writing these songs that are more about real life, autobiographical, personal, relatable. He's not doing, total Ayn Rand bullshit or Temples of Syrinx or Bytor and the Snow Dog or what have you. He is writing Subdivisions and Distantly Warning and Time Stands Still. And this song is about growing up in the suburbs and looking towards the future and the excitement and anxiety that comes with that. The last lines of the song are, "When I leave, I don't know what I'm hoping to find. And when I leave, I don't know what I'm leaving behind." What a great line that is. I can't say enough good things about this song and this band. I will never stop loving Rush. To quote Tony Khan, "I will die at this club, go to hell."
It's a fantastic quote. I mean, you already have like your unofficial citizenship now, Andrew. Like this is absolutely a thing. You can go to and fro the country anytime. You can even come to our secret Rush club. You'll be more than welcome now.
Mm-hmm. My one regret is I never got to see him live. And I've seen Black Sabbath, I've seen Paul McCartney, I've seen a lot of, heavy hitters live that are up there.
Sure.
I never got to see Rush before they retired. So that's the one big one I missed out. I'm so damn ashamed of it, Warren. I'm so damn ashamed.
Oh, well, it's not this. I mean, unless you were in Canada, because they toured like every other year or something like that.
I was in college at the time as well, and I was really getting into them, and in high school too, really. So I never really had the chance to venture out a lot of times because I was busy with school. But
great live show. It was they always had a knack for some great live shows, and and people just it's one of these shows where everyone knows the lyrics to all the songs and everyone's singing along. It was always a great time.
Mm-hmm. All right, what do you got next for us there, Warren?
Let's go check on the world's most stressed out gardener. No, that's the name of an album. It is by singer-songwriter from Calgary, released in 2021. His name is Chad Van Galen, and the song is Samurai Sword.
Has anybody seen a samurai sword? I think I left it leaning up beside the outhouse door. When I came back later, it was missing, of course. Has anybody seen a samurai sword? It has a stingray handle that's a little bit torn. Maybe you could have mistaken it for one of yours. Well, I really need it back to fight my way to the end. Plus it's only on loan from a friend. Fold it over a million times by the lonely blacksmith that lives in disguise. It's simply irreplaceable. It's totally indestructible, but it's also on loan from a friend. Has anybody seen a samurai sword?
Just a delightful song from one of Canada's most original and innovative songwriters. He is, and I'm saying songwriter, this is a guy who plays. He's also a visual artist. He's an animator. Like if you can right now, if you're listening to this right now and you've got a browser window at the ready, head on over to YouTube and look for the video for Samurai Sword by Chad Van Galen and play that along. It's a remarkable little piece of work, and it's not a long song as well. You know, it's under 3 minutes, so you know, I'm not asking you to commit to a Genesis song from back in 1972.
Hey, come on now. No need to throw some stones there. Come on.
Well, look, Genesis catching some strays here, but you know, I do love me some Supper's Ready. But
oh yes.
But the idea here for Chad is you know, he's a guy who came up with a different approach to folk music. How about that? And his music is very, very innovative. His first album that he released, I think it was his first, or at least the one that he's came into prominence with, was called Soft Airplane in 2008. It was even released via Sub Pop Records, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day. And he, you know, he creates these musical arrangements with all sorts of sounds and distortions and deviations that sound, you know, otherworldly, cosmic, a little weird, but all have this root in folk, something that feels very, very grounded nonetheless. And he's got a very unique voice, like he, you know, kind of like a techno Neil Young is how I describe him. He's fantastic and just fantastic. There you go.
Yeah, people they describe Barenaked Ladies as quirky. I think that's a good descriptor for this guy too, because he writes a song about misplacing a samurai sword on loan from a friend. That's a quirky little song, and it's a good one too. It's very cute. And yeah, what I read about this guy, he writes and records all his own music. He does all of his own artwork, animates his own music videos. He's a proper Renaissance man in a lot of ways there, Warren, as they say.
He does it all, and he's tremendous, and he's close to my age.
Well, look, you've done a lot too. You've got a podcast. Okay, maybe not.
There we go. Okay. There you go. Thank you for the confidence boost there, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. No problem. All right. My next guy is from Westmount, Quebec, your neck of the woods there, Warren. There, and he's one of the chosen people, fellow member of the tribe, and this is Leonard Cohen, and this is from the last album that came out when he was still alive, from 2016. This is the title track. This is called "You Want It Darker."
If you are the dealer, I'm out of the game. If you are the healer, means I'm broken and lame. If thine is the glory, then mine must be the shame. You want it darker, we kill the flame. Magnified, sanctified be thy holy name. Vilified, crucified in the human frame. A million candles burning for the help that never came. You want it darker. Hey, nay, I'm ready, my lord.
So this album came out 17 days before he died, and oh boy, it sounds like it. Because, you know, Leonard Cohen, never a guy you would call Mr. Sunshine. You know, always had that gloom about him, even in this more upbeat songs. But this sounds like a guy who is not only knows he's going to die of terminal cancer, he's ready for it. Like the refrain goes, Hineni, I'm ready, my lord. Hineni is Hebrew for here I am. So here I am, God, I'm ready. And there's all these allusions to the Holocaust and evil and God's in action. So it's hard to get a more haunting song than this one, I think, there, Warren. That's for sure.
Yeah. You know, I remember listening to this after he passed away, and, you know, it's kind of like, oh, yeah. All the signs were there. You know, it's not unlike listening to Bowie's last recording as well, you know, when when he was also afflicted with cancer, and you listen back to it and it's like, okay, like this is a goodbye, right? Like the whole album is a goodbye. And it was kind of that as well. And it's funny because they're both seminal in their own ways. They're both incredibly important artists in their way, Bowie and Cohen. So that little mirror aspect is interesting. And I mean, you can know Leonard Cohen in many guises. You can go back to Suzanne and Famous Blue Raincoat and his
So
poetry.
Long Marianne. Yeah,
exactly. And Hallelujah. I don't know if you ever heard of that song.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Maybe it's a bit of a. I'm glad you heard of it. I know it's a little bit of a deep cut, but I read his novel when I was in university. Or he wrote two books. I read one of them called Beautiful Losers, and he wrote it like in the 60s, and he was clearly influenced by the Beats, right? Like Ginsberg and Burroughs, and he wrote a novel like that was exactly in that vein, a love triangle between an unnamed protagonist, his wife Edith, who's dead, and his best friend, who's only named F in the book, and because he is a member of parliament and also the leader of the Quebec separatist movement. So you need to keep that guy anonymous. And it's this bizarre, like drug-addled story, and it left such an impression on me. Like even today, I still feel the emotions that I felt while I was reading it. And as a good, true artist should do with their work, they should leave that kind of impression on you, and he absolutely did that.
Yeah, it's funny. This song, it won Best Rock Performance at the Grammys, which is very impressive for a song with a Hebrew cantor in it and a synagogue choir. Really, really stretching the definition of rock there, I think. But with Leonard Cohen, I think it was always about the lyrics and the story first, and the actual music was kind of second. He was more poet than musician in a lot of ways there, Warren.
No, absolutely. That's essentially what he's been mostly known for. His capacity, his ability with words is just phenomenal. And I think, regardless of how you like the music or not, like you can take the text and just sit down and read them and take them apart, and you'll have a fantastic read, right? It's just it's a tremendous novel. It's tremendous writing. I'm still thinking about the novel, but it's tremendous reading regardless.
Yep. Much like Joni Mitchell, a preeminent songwriter of his era, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, what is next, Warren?
Let's go back to 1984. We're going to listen to Run to You by the great Bryan Adams.
She's got a heart of gold, she never let me down. You're the one that always turns me on, you keep me coming around. I know love is true, but it's so damn easy making love to you. I got my mind made up, I need to feel your touch. I'm gonna run to you. Yeah, I'm gonna run to you. 'Cause when the feeling's right, I'm gonna stay all night. I'm gonna run to you. Yeah, I'm gonna run to you. Oh, when the feeling's right, I'm gonna run all night. I'm gonna run to you.
Bryan Adams is music comfort food for me. I was 10 years old when Reckless came out, and it's the album that turned him into a bona fide superstar. Like this, like it's the one that really defined him. Cuts Like a Knife was the previous album, which, was his breakout. That was the one that really put him on the scene. But Reckless was just like bonafide him, sanctified him. Is like this guy is a superstar. And everyone, I don't know how it was, because again, I was 10 years old. There was no thing called the internet back then. I wasn't calling my American friends on the rotary phone to ask them how the music scene was going back then. But everyone knows Summer of '69. I think everyone even knows Heaven, right? But for us Canadian kids, Run to You was the deal. Like, that was the one that hit the radio waves and just captivated us. That, to me, that's quintessential Bryan Adams. You'll have the Everything I Do, I Ever Do It For You's later, and that's fine. But this album, that track specifically, it's that's some quintessential Adams right there. And it's one of these albums, and I'm sure you've met people. Let me get to my point instead. I'm sure you've run into people, in your circles where everyone has a certain record, right? And even out of your circles, you'll go to someone's home and they have this album. They have this. This is an album everyone had. This is like Reckless. Everyone had this album. They had the vinyl, they had the cassette. I don't care, but everyone owned this record. It was just tremendous.
Yeah, like Barenaked Ladies, I am also a Bryan Adams respecter, because he's a guy who I think some people, they may not realize just how massive he is. Like, yeah, they'll know Summer of '69, they'll know Heaven, Everything I Do, those big songs, but he's got a lot more than that. He's like Canadian Bon Jovi. He can do the rockers, he can do the ballads, and yeah, he sold a schmuckload of albums. Cuts Like a Knife, the one that broke him in the States, that went to number 8 and went platinum. This album went number 1 in the States, 5 times platinum in the US, 11 times platinum in Canada, and it's the first Canadian album to sell 1 million copies in Canada, and every single is a top 20 hit as well. Just insane. He's one of the best-selling artists of all time, and he's still big. He's still touring arenas around the world. So, yeah, if you only know of Bryan Adams of a couple of songs, you should know, like, that is just the tip of the iceberg underneath, that guy for sure, Warren.
And he even had an MTV Unplugged album when they were still hip, when it was still cool to do. Yeah. He's an accomplished photographer too. Did you know that?
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah.
He has his own exhibitions running around. I mean, tremendous. Yeah, there's a lot of respect that you have to toss through. That you have to toss to the guy. Absolutely.
And I also want to give some respect to Jim Vallance, who was also Canadian. He was Bryan's songwriting partner for the first 5 albums, and he co-wrote this song. He co-wrote Summer of '69, Heaven, Cuts Like a Knife, Somebody, and he also wrote songs for Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, Heart, Joan Jett, Kiss, Scorpions, Ozzy. So he's got quite the resume out there, and I just wanted to give him some love as well there, Warren.
Absolutely. Also wrote for Canadian band Glass Tiger from very much from its time. We didn't put any Glass Tiger on our list, but shout out. I think he wrote I think he wrote Someday, which was a pretty big hit and a really good song. I think an objectively great pop song. So Mr. Vallance has been around.
Mm-hmm. All right, my next pick, much like Chris Jericho, they're from Winnipeg, you idiot. This is The Guess Who, and this is from their album from 1969 called Wheatfield Soul, and this is These Eyes.
These eyes watched you bring my world to an end. This heart could not accept and pretend. The curtains on me, and I will never be free, no. You took the vow with me,
wonderful song. That's the great Burton Cummings on lead vocals. And Randy Bachman of Bachman Turner Overdrive is also in the band. And this came out the year before American Woman, which was, the big album with the title track and No Time, No Sugar Tonight, When Friends Fall Out, and those songs. And at the time when this came out, they were primarily a garage band. And the label wanted to put this out as a single, and the band was like, no, it's a ballad, there's an orchestra, it's not really indicative of who we are. But the label got their way, and thank God they did, because this was their breakthrough single in America. This is a top 10 hit, sold over 1 million copies, and yeah, I urge people who only know American Woman or whatever, give this one a shot, because it's quite lovely, Warren.
Yeah, I think this, I consider this to be like the quintessential Guess Who song. I know American Woman is probably, American Woman's a great song. Like, don't let us lead you astray. But I feel like this is the one that captures the originality and the depth of what this band is capable of doing. Right. It is so perfect for 1969 too. Like, it's directly in that vibe as well. Like, there's so much to love about this song. I personally, if you were to ask me to rank them, I'd rank this above American Woman. I think it perfectly it perfectly encapsulates the band. I love this song.
Great song, yeah, and I love as well the origin of the name Guess Who, because originally the band was fronted by a guy named Chad Allen, and they were Chad Allen and the Reflections, and then Chad Allen and the Expressions. And they put out a single of a cover of Shakin' All Over, and the label kept their name off of it and instead put Guess Who on it as like a publicity stunt to make it seem like this, British invasion band was working incognito. But the DJs kept saying, okay, this next song is by Guess Who. And eventually, Chad Allen leaves the band, Burton Cummings comes in, and they changed the name to the Guess Who. So, cute little story there, I guess, there, Warren.
Boy, they wouldn't be, they'd be plagued with name issues for the entirety of the career, right? Because later on, don't want to get into the legal aspects of it, but the band, some members leave the band, or the band splits up, and I think that, like, it's the bass player. Their names are just not coming to me right now, and I apologize for that. Goes up, and he asked the other guys, he asked Cummings and whatnot, can I use the band's name just to do like a couple of shows, or one show? I think it was like a fundraiser even. And they said yes, but then he overstepped his boundaries and started doing more and more shows. The band got angry, and there was this ownership of the name of the Guess Who that had been going, legal battles that had been going on for years that just got settled. Like this past summer of 2024, where Cummings got the name back, and it's his to keep. No one else can use it. So it's interesting. I didn't know that story about how the name came together, and it's interesting to think that throughout the entire the entire span of the band, there's always been like. Name issues have always been kind of like part of their identity. That's funny. That's funny to me.
Yeah, it reminds me of how there were two versions of Rat, there were two versions of Yes, there were two versions of Queensryche. It's always a headache with band names a lot of times.
There were two versions of Queensryche?
Yeah, there was one. Yeah, with the lead singer, and there was one without the lead singer, and they were just at the same time going around. So it's always craziness with band names, but what do you got next for?
They would need more silent lucidity, I'd say.
Oh, sir, what kind of show do you think this is? Come on, now get serious.
All right.
What do you got next?
I've got me one of the stalwarts of pop back in the 80s. We are going to head all the way back to 1985 from the album Strange Animal. We're going to listen to the song Strange Animal, performed by none other than Gowan.
They've been trying to stick a line in your system.
places you hold. Trying to open wide, hoping to step inside your soul. But everything here is unfamiliar, nothing they've seen remotely similar. How can it be you're so peculiar? Oh, how can I get enough? You're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I've got to follow. I've got to follow.
I mean, listen, you're hip. You're listening to the radio. You're tuning in to Much Music. Yeah, you're hip with Gowan. You know who this guy is. He's going around. He's a dime store meatloaf doing all these these great things. You know, and all these great story. You know, music videos. All these tales, but with a dirt poor budget. And yet his voice is so compelling, and his songs are super catchy. Strange Animal was the album was a tremendous success for him. Charted up at number 5 back in 1985 when it was released. The song itself peaked at number 15, but on that same album you had another great song called "A Criminal Mind," and that peaked all the way up to number 15 to number 5. Excuse me. Because Gowan was one of these guys that, you know, just added the melodrama to everything and tried to tell a tale, spin a yarn in each of his songs. You know, A Criminal Mind is a song about an unrepentant criminal, right? And the music video when I was a kid kind of spooked me out. You know, it was kind of weird. It was, you know, to know that someone was really into being a bad guy. He's also very well known for another song called "Moonlight Desires." He was a bit of a fixture. Fell off a little bit, and then ended up becoming the lead singer for Styx later on. And that's pretty much what he's been up to even to this day. We now call him by his full name now, which is Lawrence Gowan.
Yep.
But there was no Lawrence back then. When he was cool, when he was hip, when he was dancing around cardboard silhouettes of leafless trees, we called him just plain old Gowan.
Yeah, I saw this when you listed it, and I was like, the name Gowan, why is that so familiar? And then I realized, it's Lawrence Gowan, the guy who took over for Dennis DeYoung in Styx.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
He's still in the band today,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty neat. And what also blew my mind is his backing band on this album is Peter Gabriel's backing band. It's David Rhodes, Tony Levin, Jerry Marotta. So no wonder this was his big breakthrough album, because he has this amazing, band backing him up there, Warren.
Sure, absolutely. I like to poke a little fun at him because, his songs are so, not grandiose, but there's an element of them being very over the top, being, I guess, as the kids would say, they're a little too much. and I enjoy it. Like, it's something that I enjoy from Gowan's performances. It feels good. Well, but there's an artistry to what he did. He's always taken music very seriously, and you can tell from the get-go. He's another little tremendous persona from the music scene, the Canadian music scene of the mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's another one of those guys who had that success in Canada, but not really in the U.S. However, this song is in an American movie from a couple years ago. Did you see the Jordan Peele movie Nope?
Yep, I did, and I was thrilled to hear it.
Yeah, in the movie, there is a fictional sitcom called Gordy's Home about a pet chimp, and this was the theme song for that sitcom.
Yep.
And it ties into the movie because it's about, the movie's about an alien, so another strange animal there. One of those just strange cases, pardon the pun, where you have a guy who was big in Canada up, in the 80s, didn't really do much else in the States, but decades later, he made his mark in the States after all there, Warren.
Yeah, it just took a little time. Took a little more time, I think, than he wanted. But I mean, look, hey, touring with Styx is a good gig.
It's a pretty damn great gig. No bones about it, for sure. Okay, my next pick is from Orillia, Ontario, and this is another beloved Canadian singer-songwriter who is no longer with us. He died last year. It's Gordon Lightfoot, and this is one of his classic songs, If You Could Read My Mind.
If I could read your mind, love, what a tale your thoughts could tell. Just like a paperback novel, the kind the drugstore sells. When you reach the part where the heartaches come, the hero would be me. The heroes often fail, and you won't read that book again because the ending's just too hard to take. I'd walk away like a movie star who gets burned in a three-way script into number 2. A movie queen.
Oh, what a voice. What a song. This is like Both Sides Now, where it makes me feel things. Strong men also cry. And yeah, it's about his divorce. It's dripping with melancholy and sorrow and heartache. Real sad boy hours here. But it's so beautiful. And he wrote a lot of beautiful songs. And we don't have many of his kind left. That 60s, 70s singer-songwriter. We've lost guys like Jim Croce and Harry Chapin many years ago. We just lost Chris Christopherson not too long ago. So yeah, I mean, we still have Dylan and James Taylor and Carole King and others, but they're not going to be here forever. So we should cherish them while they're here because they've given us a lot of great music over the years, and Gordon Lightfoot is no different, Warren.
Yeah, and it's a significant song. It's a song that's been covered multiple times, right? Johnny Cash has a great cover of it.
Great version of that, yeah.
Neil Young, Belinda Carlisle even covered this. And I think there's even like a dance outfit recently that I don't know what the name is, but I think I've heard it to a contemporary beat that was also done. Like it's a beautiful song. It's just a beautiful song. There's you could try to add any other superlatives, but that's just what it is. And it's a staple in the Hayes household. When I was a kid, my mother was a huge Gordon Lightfoot fan, and that record would spin on most days for multiple times. So, I practically know all of his discography, if only through repetition, and then through appreciation. Like you said, there's a whole, and we've covered even a few of them here, not that have passed away, but not necessarily that have passed away, but we've covered some of this era of singer-songwriters here. Of course, Joni Mitchell. We've got one other guy coming up later on. This is a breed of people that are just leaving, that hasn't been reproduced either. Listening to your choices and to mine from people coming back in the day, from people back in the day, and listening to Cohen and the originality, the uniqueness of their voice, right? Because Lightfoot has, he's got this lovely mellow voice and that distinctive tremolo to it. You don't hear that kind of uniqueness anymore, right? It's just everything feels always a little more conventional. Maybe conventional is not the right word, but
home
familiar,
style, real home style, way of
familiar.
music, yeah.
Whereas even a guy like Chad Van Galen, right, has this inflection about him that can catch you off guard, but then becomes very appealing and part of the artistic signature. We're losing a lot of that. Whether these folks are still with us or have passed on, we're losing a lot of this, the color of the
Mm-hmm.
singer-songwriter. Dylan is another great example. Bob Dylan, right? Not Canadian, but nonetheless to the point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was surprised to find this out as well recently, because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony was this past weekend, and I was shocked to find out he's not in. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, he's in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, but he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, I've got a bugaboo about the Hall just in general because of the bands that they've snubbed over the years, but it's Gordon Lightfoot, for God's sake. Yeah. Like, how is he not in at this point? It's crazy.
No, like, super influential even amongst his peers, right? Like, even amongst his peers. You don't have to go very far. People who were recording alongside with him at the time. That's ridiculous. I just learned something, and now I'm mad. Now I'm going to go tweet about it.
An angry Canadian. Watch out, folks. Watch out. Be careful there.
I'm going to write a very strongly worded letter. Then I'm going to leave it on the table, think about it overnight, wake up the next morning, and then just put it in the recycle bin because it's, I don't want to start something.
Okay, what is next for you there, Warren?
We are going to go back to another artist from Toronto, and from an album that was released back in 1989. It's self-released. It's the song is called Black Velvet, and it's from Alannah Myles.
Up in Memphis, the music's like a heat wave. White lightning, bound to drive you wild. Mama's babies in the heart of every schoolgirl. Love me tender, leaves me crying in the house. The way you do it was so sweet and true. Always wanting more, eating longing for. Black velvet and that little boy smile. Black velvet and that soul southern style. A new religion that'll bring you to your knees. Black velvet if you please. Every word of every song that he sang was for you.
Alannah Myles, that very distinct voice, this very, sleepy Southern style rock of Black Velvet, a song that she wrote in homage to Elvis Presley. Was a complete and total hit for her here in Canada. I think it even crossed over into the US, and I think it still remains her biggest hit. Her album in and about itself, her self-named release in 89, had a couple of hits on it. There was another great song on it called Love Is, which was the first song that was released from the album, which introduced us a lot to her voice, which is extremely distinct and is all belts out. Also, she's got great power in those chords. But it was with the release of Black Velvet that she really rose to fame. It was an extremely popular song, but it's also kind of where her career peaked. She's kind of always been around, but a lot more low key. But nonetheless, like she was a moment in time. This incredible artist, it's one of these that ultimately you sort of look back and like you ask yourself what happened, because she really had everything going for her. She had the backing, she had the publicity, everyone knew who she was at that point. You just kind of wondered like what happened after that. I don't know, but Black Velvet is one that is a song that is part of Canadiana, I guess, if that's a thing, where that just everyone knows, everyone's heard about it, or at least knows the song, if only by ear from hearing it on the radio and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, with all due respect to Miss Myles and her incredible talent, but auga, hamana, Ed Norton, what a gorgeous woman. Holy smokes. And she still is, by the way. She's still quite the looker. And she's in her 60s.
Yeah, she's in her 60s, and she's always looked tremendous.
Oh, mama.
That silver streak that she always had in those, those curly locks. Oh, just a beautiful woman.
Yeah. Besides that, though, I love this song, that very sultry, slunky tribute to Elvis. And this was a big one. This won a Grammy and a Juno. It was a #1 song, a top 5 album, and she's had other successful songs, but this is pretty much the peak. And you don't really hear much about her nowadays. She had some health problems and legal stuff with her record company, but she just kind of dropped off, which is a shame because, when people think of Canadian female singers, they think of Shania Twain, they think of Celine Dion, Sarah McLachlan. I think she's just as good as, any of them, really. And I'm surprised to see, like, just never able to capitalize on this, big album of hers. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really curious. I'm not sure what was the issue. Cause there were tons of people that would have killed to get a #1 on Billboard back in the day. Like she really had it made. It's really curious. I don't know what the thing was. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm. Very strange. Very strange. Well, staying on the ladies track here, this is a trio of ladies from Montreal. This is a group called Toulouse, Toulous. Am I saying that right there, Warren? Toulouse?
You're perfect, spot on.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. This is from 1977, an album called Export, and this song is called It Always Happens This Way. Now, you might be asking, Andrew, where in the wide, wide world of sports did you hear that song? Where did you discover this French-Canadian disco trio that was only around for about a decade, and a song that is almost entirely in French? And the answer is Letterkenny.
Oh, right.
Letterkenny and the spin-off Shoresy, they have some of the best music drops on TV. And I discovered a bunch of bands watching those shows, and this song plays at the end of an episode of Letterkenny, and all the characters are dancing and having a good time, and the camera slows down, and the vibes are just so wholesome. It gets me every time. So I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to Toulouse there, Warren.
I was floored when I saw this because even for Quebecois, that's a hell of a deep cut, brother.
It is.
Like I was like, what? And then I was talking to a coworker today, actually. And I was talking about the podcast, and he's really into music as well. And I told him, I said, this guy I'm doing it, he's an American, and he's pulling out Toulouse, right? And he goes, oh, is it because of Letterkenny? And I'm like, what? Excuse me? yeah, because he watches, right? And he says, he told me, he said he started crying so hard out of laughter when he heard that, because like that's no one remembers this song. Like no one remembers this song, and it's a groovy little. It's a groovy little number on top of that. Like it's good, and you can imagine someone in a discotheque looking across the room and locking eyes with someone else at the other end of the bar, and then they move onto the dance floor grooving to this song. Like you can see it. It's actually it's that kind of vibe. And like out of the trio, like only one of these women, I think. I know one of these women went on to have anything remotely close to a successful career in the arts afterwards. Two of them completely fell off the face of the earth, but like she started doing the one who broke out, Judy Richards is her name. She did a bit of music, but she started doing a lot of voiceover work. And she also married one of Quebec's most beloved, famous, and talented, legendary comedians. On top of that, so out of them all, like there's only really one that survived Toulouse. I'm still stunned when I saw that on the list. I was like, oh my god, that was tremendous.
Yeah, I had to dig a little deep to find just some proper info about the group, because they don't even have an English Wikipedia page. And yeah, they formed in the mid-'70s. They broke up in the mid-'80s. They had several different members come in and out. And apparently they had multiple hits in Canada and even a top 40 song in America, which is pretty impressive for a bilingual group. It's not like ABBA where they sing in English. So yeah, big props to these ladies who I had never even heard of them by any stretch of the imagination before Letterkenny. But this song, it always gets me there, Warren, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even know they had success outside the province. I'm learning things here. Like when I tell you, this is a deep cut, brother. Like we're digging deep on this one. I am severely impressed.
Well, I'll take my bow early here, I guess. Yeah. So, but what is your second to last pick here, Warren?
Over to 1993 from the album Splendor Solace is the Tea Party, and this is their song "The River." Wait, you're not going to let it play for the entire 7 minutes?
Not this time, I'm afraid.
The early 90s were a fun time in music in general, because it really was the mainstream. There was a lot more mainstream vision on what would grow into become alternative music, right? Alternative rock. And it was a really fascinating time, and it was the same in Canada as well, where you started getting these bands that broke out from what I like to call the Canadian vibe that we were talking about earlier, and trying to do something that felt maybe a little more contemporary, maybe in tune with the youths of the time. And it's interesting that I say that, talking about the Tea Party, who was a band that clearly had influences in psych rock from the 70s. You know, the lead singer was a carbon copy of Jim Morrison, and now actually looks like Johnny Depp. It's kind of wild. But nonetheless, they created this energy, this style of music that, even though their influences were very, very clear, managed to do something that sounded very contemporary and very modern. And I think a lot of it went through the drum work. I was really enamored with the Tea Party when they released their first album in '93. Saw them a couple of times as well in concert, and they were great shows. It was just a great different period in Canadian music.
Well, being from Boston, I know a thing or two about tea parties. And unlike the political movement, this one gets the Andrew seal of approval. This is good stuff. And I did kind of get the Jim Morrison vibes from the vocalist, listening to it for sure.
Oh, it's crazy.
And it's kind of a recurring theme of the episode. I had never heard of them before, but they are very successful in Canada with multi-platinum selling albums and award nominations. So it's amazing how this band can be so big, and yet for so many other people, they just fly under the radar, Warren.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were lots of other bands coming up in the meantime, not emulating, but following the vibe of bands like Live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the Toadies or Bush, right? We had kind of those. We had our own little group in Canada with the Tea Party, with another band called I Mother Earth, or another one that maybe you've heard of, Our Lady Peace, right?
Yes.
That came up in that time with their. I think their album Naveed, their first record, came out around that period. I love that record. I am not a fan of of late stage Our Lady Peace, but that album Naveed with the Birdman on it is just like a fantastic record. I actually started listening to some, getting my notes together for today, because it sort of reminded of all the shows. Because these three bands, Tea Party, I Mother Earth, Our Lady Peace, they were joined at the hip. And they would travel. They'd go on shows across the country. They tour together. So you'd go see one, you get to see all three. They really were like a unit. It was tremendous stuff. It was a great time. It was really, really a super fun time.
Mm-hmm. And also, I was fascinated by this. The lead singer is a guy named Jeff Martin. We have a Jeff Martin at Voices of Wrestling who is also Canadian. He's in the Slack. And listen, for all we know, Warren, we could have a rock superstar in our midst.
Listen, I just might end up marking out like a fangirl if that is the case, Jeff.
All right. Well, my second to last pick here is another band from Toronto. It's a band called Red Rider, and this is from their 1981 album As Far as Siam. This is Lunatic Fringe.
I can hear you coming. Know what you're after. We'll rise to you this time. We won't let you kill the laughter. Lunatic fringe. In the twilight's last gleaming.
So that is, a classic rock radio staple. It's their most well-known song, especially in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And it was used famously in the movie Vision Quest with Matthew Modine. There's the scene towards the end where he's in this dark gym getting ready to take on this, unbeatable high school wrestler. So it's a really good pump-up song, which is weird because it's inspired by the rise of anti-Semitism in the 70s. So not the most heart-pumping topic, I guess, but still, I like the song a lot. It's a great song, and it has that really great guitar solo with the lap steel guitar that faded out there. And it also became the basis for Kurt Angle's TNA theme because of that amateur wrestling connection. So there's the wrestling connection there too, Warren.
Really?
Yeah.
I really didn't know that. And I thought the wrestling connection here was to Dean Ambrose. So, because of Lunatic Fringe, right?
The webs spinning out of this, Warren, they're immense. They're immense.
Just tremendous. I really debated before I got your list, right? And you sent it pretty quickly, but I was already thinking about my list, and I was debating whether or not to put a Tom Cochrane song.
Mm-hmm.
Should I put on "Life Is a Highway" or not? And,
I mean, that is the song.
Yeah. But then again, it's like I've heard it everywhere. Like it is a song that just you turn on the radio, it's playing. You go to the grocery store, it's playing. You're in the waiting room at the dentist, it's playing. Like it plays everywhere. It plays everywhere. So yeah, I'm kind of glad you got the Tom Cochrane stuff in here. I think that nonetheless, I think that for a lot of Canadians, the Red Rider is maybe a little forgotten. I think it's a little, it's a band that we don't necessarily talk about, don't necessarily have the Red Rider tapes still hanging around in our dusty old collections. I think it's a band that people have mostly forgotten about, which is a shame because life may be a highway and I may want to write it all night long, but man, if I'm writing it all night long, I'm going to turn off the radio so I can stop hearing that song. I would like to hear more Tom Cochrane stuff. And Red Rider is a blind spot, I feel, for a lot of folks. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought this up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Tom Cochrane, the front man, as we're mentioning here, definitely someone who is more successful as a solo guy. Because, yeah, Life is a Highway is the song, like I said. But he's won, I think, 8 Juno Awards. He's in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. He's part of the Order of Canada, all these humanitarian awards. So, his biggest achievement is a song that's been in like 8 million car commercials. But beyond that, he's done very well for himself. Absolutely there, Warren.
Yeah. He has done very well for himself, and good for him. Like, apparently he's a stand-up guy. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him. It's just, that song, man. If I never hear it again, it'd be too soon.
Okay, well, let's change gears here and go to your last pick there, Warren. What is it?
Well, to wrap it up, we are going to listen to one of the premier pianists in the history of humanity. We're going to listen to Glenn Gould from his seminal, groundbreaking album, The Goldberg Variations. We're going to listen to some Bach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. The title is Goldberg Variations BWV 988 Variation 1A1 Clav. And this song is, I think, like 45 seconds long. So we'll just play the whole thing there, Warren. How about that?
There you go. Let's do it. Originally from Toronto, of course, and one of the all-time masters, just a genius with the piano. but that came into prominence because of these Goldberg variations. And why did he come to prominence? Because he had a very unique, very unorthodox style of playing that made him a bit controversial, right? Amongst certain circles, people were like, "Well, this isn't exactly how you're supposed to do it. You're adding some things," because he strayed a little too. Some people feel like he strayed a little too far from, let's say, Bach's original intentions, because and this is from talking with. I can share this because I spoke with my son, who is a concert percussionist himself, who studied Gould, and told me that Gould's main talent or quirk anyway was to be able to play the counterpoint in some pieces very audibly. So it turns out like you're listening to the song and it feels like it's two people playing at once. And so he's just an absolutely phenomenal genius musician who had a habit of humming while playing.
If you heard closely, you could kind of hear him in the piece.
Exactly. And that, again, sort of fucking annoyed some people. but it's something that is extremely distinctive to him. And later on in his career, he'd stop playing live. He stopped doing concerts so he could focus on recording. And like all grandmasters, I think in any field, he was extremely difficult to work with. That he was fairly notable about that. And a lot of people believe that he was probably on the spectrum at some point because of the incredible focus that he had in just trying to overachieve in his field. So yeah, but I mean, this is a man who was known throughout the world. He's a pillar. He's tremendous, and some of my earliest, let's say, I was going to say some of my earliest exposure to classical music was him, but that's a lie. Looney Tunes would be my earliest exposure to classical music, but to appreciate it, to see how to get an understanding that it can be played differently while staying true to what it is, he was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, he was the model of eccentric genius, for sure. Eccentric because he didn't like to be touched. He didn't like being cold. He was a hypochondriac. He was very particular about his piano setup, and he would, do just dozens of takes of songs. And yeah, he would hum and vocalize during recordings. So yeah, very eccentric, but again, also a genius, also super, super talented. And I think this is one of those cases where the context is so important, because it's not just that he's playing this piece incredibly fast and incredibly well. It's that the Goldberg variations are not really meant for piano. It's so technically difficult to do on the piano. Here's this guy who is just blitzing right through it with all his showmanship, and it puts him on the map. It's his debut album from '56, and he becomes just this giant in the world of classical music until his death in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And he actually redid this album the year before he died, which is not as showy, but the original recordings here are they're just legendary.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's just completely outstanding stuff. I mean, I think that even if you're not a connoisseur of classical music, if you listen to the song that we played for you, you inherently have appreciation for the artistry that was happening right there. Like it's just phenomenal. It's mind-boggling. It's captivating at the same time. It's exactly what Glenn Gould did best.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my last pick, we've name dropped him earlier. He's from Toronto and Winnipeg, and he's no longer a young man, but he's still young, man.
Oh, Lord.
I tickle myself, Warren. I can't help it.
I don't want to know what you're doing while we're recording the podcast, Andrew.
It's Neil Young. And this is from his big album from 1970, After the Gold Rush. And this is Don't Let It Bring You Down.
From the weight of the load and the buildings scrape the sky. Cold wind ripping down the alley at dawn and the morning paper fly. Dead man lying by the side of the road with the daylight in his eyes. Don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Find someone who's turning and you come around.
So we've played some rather depressing songs this episode. What's one more, right? Come on.
Sure.
And Neil Young, he has a knack for writing depressing songs. You know, emo bands, take note. This is a master at work here. And he's got that high tenor voice that just makes it even sadder. Old man lying by the side of the road. So yes, this song will bring you down, but it's a great one, Warren, absolutely.
I love this chorus. This chorus is one, it is so good. Like, don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning down. Just burning, right? Just burning. What am I talking about? Find someone who's turning and you will come around. You know, and turning, what does he mean? Is it the drug reference? You know,
hey man, tune in, man. Turn on, drop out, bud.
Exactly. I'm glad you got it. You know, it's so, don't let it get you down. Just get high, man. Just forget about it. It's fine. Look, he's an institution. He's an institution in this country. He's an institution for rock, for this era of singer-songwriters as well. Like, he's also part of this breed that's slowly dying out, right? The voice, the artistry, and a man who's he's always uncompromisingly been himself. You know, he's never apologized for taking stances, for, telling Spotify to stick it up their ass, and, it always true to himself. I have so much respect for this man. I love his music. I'm super enthusiastic. You fired me up, Andrew. We could do another 3 hours of this.
And he's a man who has just never stopped working, really. I could have picked so many songs because his body of work is huge. He's been doing this nonstop since he was 18, and he's 78 now. Like, he's had a 60-year career of solo work, Buffalo Springfield, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Crazy Horse, and so on and so forth. And he's just kept going. He's got that strong Canadian work ethic that's powered by hockey and maple syrup and all those good Canadian things there, Warren.
I remember the Pearl Jam crossover album that he did.
Mirrorball, yeah.
But did I say Merkinball?
I said Mirrorball.
But was it Mirrorball or
Mirror? It's Mirrorball.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I think it's Merkinball.
It is Mirrorball. The EP
really?
Was Merkinball.
Oh, the EP was Merkinball. All right, you're right. Okay. See, okay, I wasn't that far off, Andrew. But that just like, that was a tremendous album, and I remember that because one of the reasons I really got into Pearl Jam back in the day was because Eddie Vedder at some point in a couple of interviews started talking about Neil Young and how he loved Neil Young and how he was an inspiration. I'm like, listen, if this guy's into Neil Young, like, he's all right by my book, he's okay with me. And they had this tremendous album together, and they did that one show they did that one song together at the MTV Music Video Awards back when they were cool. like that was like for Warren back at that era. That was just like a tremendous super group, a melding of people that I just loved, all coming together. And look, we could just sit here and gush about Neil Young for hours. Just an incredible career. A guy who like got banned off of MTV, right? Because of his what was it? Was this I can't remember any of the song titles. I'm being stupid. It wasn't this Buds for You. It was this. He had written a song being critical about, capitalism, which is what he typically did. And in his music video, he used a dog that resembled
This note's
for you. There you go. Thank you. And he in the music video, he used a dog that looked like Spuds MacKenzie, who was a dog mascot for, I believe, Miller Lite. I would say he was like the TV. He was an actual dog. He was I think a bull terrier. I don't know. I'm not too.
Bud Light. It was Bud Light.
Yeah, it was Bud Light. Okay. And MTV banned the video. They took it off the air because couldn't be making fun of the sponsors here. Couldn't be critiquing that, right? So he's like, all right, don't play my song. I don't care. It's like, sure, I'll play. It'll play elsewhere. I'll be fine. I don't need you guys. It just even bucking trends when you shouldn't have. It was all fantastic. It was all tremendous. I love this man. I love this man so much.
I mean, he had his own thing. What was it called? Pono, was it? That digital music player, and it was all high quality audio and whatever. I mean, it failed, because you're going up against Apple and MP3 and whatever. But he tried it because, damn it, he's Neil Young and he's going to do what he wants. So
And I'm pretty sure, he clearly had the money to do it, but that's just it. Like, he's the guy, he just does. He sees what's going on. He sees what's going on, the super compressed music. He knows what kind of quality is lost, especially with music streaming, right? He knows what the amount of quality that's lost. So he's like, no, we're going to do a high fidelity. We're going to do this for audio files. But yeah, it didn't quite work out that way.
Mm-hmm. He's fine, I think. I think he landed on his feet there after that for sure.
I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah. But all right, that was our episode there. And again, we could have gone all night there, Warren. We did not get to so many people there. Shania Twain, again, Celine Dion, Paul Anka, Michael Bublé, The Band, Justin Bieber, Nickelback, Avril Lavigne, Snow. We didn't get to Snow and Informer.
That's a shame. Now that you, now I feel bad. I really feel bad that we didn't pull up Snow. I really feel bad.
There's always next time, my friend. But
no Anne Murray, no Bruce Cockburn, Feist. Hey, we could have even thrown in The Weeknd if we wanted. But there was a lot of people that we could still cover. We should do a part 2 at some point.
Absolutely. Well, in any event, Warren, this was a fantastic episode. To use the language of your people, c'est magnifique.
Oui, c'est magnifique.
Absolutely. Just a tremendous time as always, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. I have a lot of fun doing your show, and this was particularly fun. I agree. We had a great time. Thank you, Andrew.
Any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
The Mr. Warren Hayes Show, where we unfortunately talk about pro wrestling every week. You can follow it either on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. And if you join me on YouTube, you will also be privy to my occasional live streams as well, which are always a good time. A lot of very casual talking about stuff happening in wrestling and having a good time with the chat. So we'd love to have you.
Absolutely, yeah. And Music of the Mat, of course, on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, voicesofwrestling.com, the Twitter @Music of the Mat. If you want to leave a comment about this episode, share your picks, voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. We have a channel in the Discord there. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to the show Apple, Spotify, your podcast player of choice. Leave a nice rating and review. Okay, Warren, let's go out with one more song here. And we played the biggest Canadian prog rock trio ever earlier. Let's play the second biggest Canadian prog rock trio ever. This is a band from Mississauga called Triumph. And they have a bunch of well-known songs. Fight the Good Fight, Never Surrender, Lay It on the Line. But we'll go out with this song. It's from their Allied Forces album. This is Magic Power. Warren, thanks again, man.
Thank you, man.
So she hopes the DJ's gonna play her favorite song. Makes her feel much better, brings her closer to her dreams. A little magic power makes it better than it seems. She's young now, she's wild now, she wants to be free. She gets the magic power and music for me. She's young now, she's wild now, she wants to be free. She gets the magic power and music from me.
Music of the Mat is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.